And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports Network. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Danny Kanell, fired up to bring you a full hour of college football conversation as we continue to count down to the beginning of the 2025 season. We are going to roll through and have another draft. This time, we're not talking about quarterbacks. No. Get them out. We are talking about impact players in college football that are not at the quarterback position. We'll be drafting some of our favorites through 4 rounds, talking about the impact positions in college football today. Maybe a win total of the week before we get you out of here. But before we get started with all that, it's rankings season, boys. First, we got the coaches poll on Monday, our very first top 25, and we get to peel it apart. And sure enough, it is the Texas Longhorns narrowly beating out the Ohio State Buckeyes for the number 1 spot. Texas at 1, getting 28 first place votes. Ohio State at 2, getting 20 first place votes. Penn State at 3, getting 14 first place votes. Tom Fornelli, as we look at that, that's the top tier, right? Do you see it in the same way in terms of the battle, the debate for number 1?
Yeah, I think that is one of the bigger storylines heading into the season, is that we don't really know who the number 1 team in the country is at this point, because every single team that you would consider putting in first place has a question mark surrounding it. Like when you look at Penn State, as far as roster is concerned, that's the one we know the most about because it has the most returning players. It has returning quarterback. It has its running backs. It has most of its defense. It's just they haven't really proven their ability to beat those teams that they're up against. But then you look at Texas and Ohio State, new quarterbacks, new running backs, new receivers, new everybody for the most part. You're just kind of relying on their recruiting classes and the talent. So, yeah, I think it's an accurate reflection of how I personally feel about college football heading into 2025. I don't know who the best team in the country is right now.
Oh my gosh, I'm just bored already. Can we get somebody to think outside the box? You know what this looks like? Every way too early top 25, every top 25 you've seen out there from everybody else that's put it out there, it looked kind of like the Vegas odds that I think a lot of coaches are utilizing now to determine their top 25. I mean, at least some years we get somebody who will put their team, and they're like clearly not a number 1 team, but they'll be like, I believe in them, and they'll put their team at number 1. This is just the latest line of groupthink in the top 25. And if you wanted me to pick apart any one of these, I could, to Tom's point. You could say there's no way that team should be there because of the amount of question marks they have. Or if you really wanted to say, well, Clemson should be number 1 or Penn State should be number 1 because of the amount of returners that they have, including their quarterbacks, you could make that case. That's the part I think that is exciting outside of the groupthink of the top 25 the coaches have, is that you really could make a case and pick apart almost all these teams in the top 10 and say they could be 1, they could be 1, and then you could pick another team and say they don't deserve to be in the top 10. So I think it's fascinating because it does feel wide open, but the groupthink across the board is a little bit boring.
All right, well, let me push back a little, Danny. How big is the group where you think there is a good argument that they should go into the year at first place? You know, Georgia's at 4, Notre Dame at 5, Clemson at 6, Oregon at 7. I mean, you got an Alabama comment for me as well. How big would you draw the circle of teams that have a really good case? Because I'm with Tom. I love this. I love that the first place votes aren't 60 first place votes for one team that we're all down on. The fact that it's 28, 20, 14, that's a debate, that's a discussion, that's a prove it on the field type thing. So how many teams do you think have a real case to be going into this year as the number 1 team in the country?
I think 6 is probably the swath of what I would throw that blanket. Maybe if you went down to Alabama and Oregon, relying on Big Ten champs last year at Oregon and Alabama's kind of historical presence among the top 2 teams once the season ends. But I would say 6 as far as deep as I would go. Notre Dame did play in the national championship last year. Like Marcus Freeman has been a consistent winner. The schedule's pretty easy. So I would say there are 6, which is ironic because no one gave Notre Dame a first place vote out of any of them. But I do think that 6 is probably the lowest I would go to really make a strong case for who could be number 1.
Yeah, I would probably go 8.
Yeah.
I look at that top 10, like honestly, of the 10 teams in that top 10, I think all but the ACC teams are capable of winning a national title. Like I think Clemson being portrayed as a national title contender is probably a bridge too far this year. I think Miami being portrayed as one is probably a bridge too far. But as far as Notre Dame and the SEC and the Big Ten teams that are in that top 10, I think they've all got a legitimate shot at pulling it off. And I think that's just kind of a reflection of the way this sport works right now. Like there's never been a bigger divide between the Power Four and the Group of Five. There's never been a bigger divide between the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12. But when it comes to the national championship, everything is kind of bunching up and going in the opposite direction, especially now that, we no longer have COVID quarterbacks. We don't have any more 24-year-olds out there who have all that kind of experience that could just transfer into a place and keep the car rolling. I think that with all the changes at QB and all the changes across the board, there's a lot more that's, just kind of up for discussion still. We have to let it play out.
You really going to say that Clemson is not a national title contender?
Yeah, I don't think they are. I mean,
that is so
they lost 4 games last year, fellas.
Give it to Dabo and make sure that Chip and I are on the bus with Clemson, not the rest of y'all bus, which he can throw Tom on that one, and Tom could be the driver of this conversation. I mean, he's got.
Are they going to win every game 10-7?
Wait a second. You don't think their offense is going to be good with Cade Klubnik coming back?
Who's the best skill position player on Clemson right now?
Bryant Wesco, TJ Moore, Antonio Williams, who was first team All ACC.
Like, they have a deep wide receiving core. Running back would be the one question. They are converting a wide receiver to come over to play running back, that or a true freshman. But I think a lot of this goes back to the quarterback position, where Cade Klubnik was top 5 in touchdown passes last season. He played great against Texas, one of those SEC teams, was leading his team to a game, tying drive against South Carolina before he had that ball tipped and it went the other way. I think that is disrespectful to Clemson. Look at him taking shots.
How'd he do against Georgia again?
Now I ain't bringing that game up. I'm not bringing that game up.
Yeah, for some reason you didn't mention that one. Yeah.
That felt like 5 years ago.
Listen, and we get to see it as the Clemson Tigers do start against LSU, a chance to rewrite all of the haunting nightmares that there were from that opener against Georgia, where they played so poorly. All right, now there is a new set of rankings out that I am very, very proud of. Danny, you'll be happy to know Clemson ranks a little higher in this set. This is the CBS Sports 136. That's right. We've got every single team and the FBS ranked. We're not cutting off at 25 because, frankly, 25 ain't appropriate. Now, you see Texas does get the number 1 spot, like in the coaches poll, but we've got Penn State ahead of the reigning champion Ohio State Buckeyes. As I mentioned, Clemson a few spots higher, number 4 in our rankings. Now, but as we start to expand our conversation, we talked about a lot of the teams in the top 10. Tom, I know that there's at least one team that maybe not only did not fall in line with where you had them on your ballot, but maybe surprised you. It was down there at number 12. So what'd you make when you saw the consensus at CBS Sports 136?
Yeah, they're not on that graphic of top 10 teams, so at least our voters weren't that dumb. But I saw Florida at number 12. And I need to know what our voters are smoking to put Florida at number 12, because I just want to remind everybody watching, I don't think the Gators are going to stink, but to start them at 12 is ridiculous. This is a team that hasn't finished any season ranked since 2020. They haven't won more than 8 games in a season since 2019. So for them to jump that high to be a number 12 team in the country to start the year, I will remind you, in the last 4 years, Florida is 2-11 against top 15 teams. Maybe I'm strange, but I think that if you're going to be considered a top 15 team, you actually have to show an ability to beat top 15 teams. And Florida hasn't done it for years. And listen, I like DJ Lagway. I get it. I know they were better when he was healthy and starting last year, but this is still a team that, for me, with all the other teams you could have voted for to put in that spot, I need to see Florida winning these games before I can just sit there and assume, oh, yeah, that's the 12th best team in the country.
Okay, I can get back on board with this one, Tom. We can high five on this take. And by the way, when was this poll taken? Was it taken in one of the like 2 days over the complete offseason where DJ Lagway was healthy? It must have been, because otherwise all you've seen him is missing the spring with a shoulder injury, limited throwing motion, then comes into camp with a sleeve on his strained calf. And I know he's back at practice, but I still think that to me is the biggest concern for the Florida Gators. Is I know they have a lot returning, and they've got an offensive line with a lot of experience, and they've got a defense which has a lot of guys returning from last year. But Tom makes a great point. They have not done it against the better competition last year. There was way too much faith, hope, and optimism around a quarterback who, yes, he's incredibly gifted and he's 6-1 as a starter when he's healthy. But until I see him play a string of 5-6 games consecutively, that is a major concern, especially since there's no Graham Mertz walking through the door. Harrison Bailey, their backup quarterback, hasn't even played that much in his entirety of his career. So I think there are major concerns, and I agree with you. It is way too much sort of a brand bias, but they do seem to be that trendy team this offseason that everybody's fallen in love with. And again, their win total's what, 7.5, which I think I'll be on the under based on recent history.